Playing cards are objects of art that can speak to a people and for a people. That's a quote from Rory Rennick from one of his card culture articles from a few months ago. Make no mistake, we are blessed tonight. This talk is so important. Again, we have never had this kind of opportunity before. Rennick plans to share his personal journey as he catalogs different representations of black men and women found on playing cards. Author, playing card historian, magic researcher. Trust me, there is no one better than Rory Rennick to present on this specific topic. Armed with compassion, empathy, and love, he's here to help everyone understand racially charged imagery found on playing cards. Tonight, Rory Rennick educates us on how these images were formulated, propagated, and evolved over time. So enough of me talking. It's now time for me to listen. And I urge you too to listen to Rory's journey. But first, let's see those ones flooding this chat. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce you to Rory Rennick.
Hi, it's so good to be here.
Hello, Rory.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Opening welcome. I feel good. I'm feeling better. I've been a little under the weather, and so but seeing everyone here makes my heart feel good. Seeing some friends who've been contacting me. Some people I don't even know been contacting me. Want to say hi. Where else can you go to a place that has the Congress guy and Pip Chick? You know.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Give shout out to Matt and let me see a couple other people, Juke. And to be quite honest, Lee, when I first started collecting cards and I heard the name Jackson Robinson, I just knew. I said, the guy with two last names. I said, this guy has to be a brother. Okay. I'm telling you. And today I unabashedly avow and share my card crush on Jason. Jason just tore it up yesterday. This is card.
He did.
You see CC, that's card crush. He brought the history, and I was brought up, and a lot of you have been brought up as well. There's three things you don't talk about, especially in American culture. You don't discuss politics, religion, and race, which is ironic because America was founded on politics, religion, and race. So you have to talk about it. But because these conversations have been squelched, a lot of people haven't been speaking out about it. And if you are Black in particular, you've been kind of avoiding speaking about it until just recently. And I was so glad when you and I had a personal conversation, a heartfelt conversation about what I was seeing and not seeing in playing cards. And you honestly shared that a lot of card collectors, they didn't have the vocabulary or the perspective of a Black person. So it wasn't that people were racist or anything, but they just didn't know how to talk about these cards. So if we can, I'll share some of my screen for this presentation. This is not a polished soliloquy. It's going to be heartfelt, and I want everyone to know the place that I'm coming from. There's a lot of technical aspects of playing cards that we could go into, but I want you to see from a Black person's perspective. When I started finding these cards, especially some of the vintage cards, how that made me felt and how did these things come about? And so we needed to contextualize these images so that I didn't become too angry. I like to refer everyone to a couple of card articles. Of course, you just mentioned them. My card history journey, which was in January, and again in March, the train ride for the ages, the Cotton Belt Route playing cards. And I talked in those two articles about my journey and what I was finding, and more importantly, some of the background surrounding these cards. which led, unbeknownst to me, that it got out into the magic community. And Vanish Magazine, the magazine for close to 100,000 magicians, asked me to write an article around a similar subject. So today I want to share with you my presentation. It's going to be a slide presentation, so bear with me if things don't go quite the way that we wanted to. But it is a journey of jokers, juice, and models. Now, besides the black image playing cards that I'll be covering today, there were some that were created before the late 1800s. In fact, I'll share one from my private collection. Many of you may be familiar with the Cotter cards. This one was 1805, and they had a series of transformation cards. For those of you who do not know what transformation cards is, when the shapes, the hearts, the pips, those different shapes are incorporated into the illustration, usually on the face of the cards. Now, for those of you who may not know what this particular card is, I'll give you a couple of moments to guess what this card portrayed. Okay, time's up. If you had guessed that this was the Two of Clubs, then of course you would be correct. And as you see, the clubs and spades were typically used to depict black people, well, for obvious reasons. But there was an absence of black image playing cards until the late 1880s. Here's a brief description. Most notably, the watermelon jokers, which you saw one today. Here's one from the National Card Company, the Steamboat number 9, produced in 1882 and then reissued again in 1885. The 7 black faces you see there were in typical minstrel style, exaggerated features, red lips, almost grotesque depiction of black people. Again, of course, here was the Steamboat Joker, was sold with the other 52 friends of his, and Russell and Morgan. And if you haven't read Jason's book, you have to, and he covers these manufacturers as well. Not to be outdone, of course, the United States Playing Card Company issued their Steamboat. This is number 999, 1891. These were the watermelon jokers, and if you refer to my issue in January, I talk about the imagery of the watermelon and why this was made popular. And we'll talk a little bit about that again here in a moment. This one, of course, was my favorite, the Cotton Belt Route 1903 deck. I want to thank Phil for his work and giving me some additional information about this particular deck. You can notice the gilded sides, but here's what I want you to take home about this. This particular deck was important for 2 reasons. First of all, it was the first time a black person, male or female, was depicted on a standard playing cards, on the back of a standard playing cards. How do I say it? This was a singular card, the Joker, but all the 52 other cards had black people on it. Now, the other Jokers before, of course, they were just one of 53 cards, and usually that Joker was relegated to the box, segregated from the other cards. And those cards were black Jokers and white face decks. Second of all, this was important because with this little girl depicting in this stereotypical way, she was probably the closest proximity that some white people had to any black people. So for the designers, this innocent black girl had to be a safe choice. Because remember, these are advertising cards. And what message was the Cotton Belt route advertising besides a superior playing card? Of course, the United States did not have the monopoly on misusing black images because the idea of white supremacy was ubiquitous. And you would notice if these were from Australia, these are not on cards, but these just depicted some of the attitudes that was viewed that black people were not humans. Well, someone had mentioned earlier about the Sutherland Coon cards. Some have an issue date of 1925. 1880 would probably be more accurate, which would be more consistent with the design of the pips. This wasn't a watermelon joker, but instead a watermelon ace. The cards were kept in this tin, and you can see, of course, again, a black face on a white court deck. The watermelon aces photo was the model for the Joker illustration. The Joker illustration says, "I am the Joker, as black as the ace of spades." And of course, he's dressed real flamboyantly. And those have some historical connotations as well. Black people will love to dress up, especially in the times of slavery when they can only dress up for church. And so they had to put together some of the most unique fashions that have been known and has been since copied. Let's see what we have here. And here are a few other blackface jokes that are pretty popular. This one is from the United States playing cards, the Virginia souvenir from the exposition of that time. And Matt just sent me some information as well about the exposition that these cards were initially given at, which is very, very unique. This one is from South Africa. Of course, again, a black face in a white court deck. And of course, you have an exaggerated smile with the black face. This one is a Park Lane Apartments tapestry room. A lot of people are familiar with this one. It was advertised as a blackamoor, and this was 1925. All of these are in my collection as well. I like to call these jokers the cotton. You see, these were minted at different times. I'm not exactly sure what run preceded which, but they were the Steamboat number 99 in 1890. And of course, this one is pretty popular by the Kalamazoo Playing Card Company, euphemistically referred to as the idle hour, which makes no sense to me. When people are working, they're not idle. But of course, that played into the stereotype of black people being lazy or idle. So we're moving on. These are 3 that are on my wish list. I have maybe like about 9 blackface jokers that I'm looking to complete my collection. But I want you to understand the images surrounding these cards. Especially here in America. America wasn't comfortable with a dignified looking black man. They had to be in the subservient roles. So these images were around. And imagine the people who were playing cards with these types of images, and if you were black. And if we could do just a little exercise, I want you to imagine, if you would, right now, if you were black. Okay, this might be hard for some of you. Don't do this exercise if you're driving in your car, okay? Just to let you know. But imagine if you are black, and these are the images that are set before you. These are the images that people expect from you in a way of behavior, portrayal, and you couldn't do anything about it. Playing cards were pretty ubiquitous at the time too, and they were a form of entertainment as well as a tool of propaganda. Let's not mistake that fact. Let's take a look. This is how widespread the idea of white superiority and black inferiority made its way into the playing cards. Some of you are familiar with the Panama souvenir playing cards. The United States playing cards issued the first one in 1908. And of course, there was a few others until the completion and after the completion of the Panama Canal being made. But on the Six of Hearts, and I didn't know it, I was just collecting the card, but when I saw the Six of Hearts, it says Jamaican workers, Panama Canal. And here's the description. And it's referred to the Jamaican workers, they said, shiftless, always ready for a song, a bit of play, or a holiday, little to be depended upon. Now, bring me full face for a moment, if you can. Is it possible? Because I want to.
Yeah, give us 1 second, Rory. We're going to try. We have to unshare your screen to do that.
Oh, okay.
There we go. There we go. We've got you now.
Okay. Okay. You know what infuriates black people? This is what it is. It's descriptions like this. When they said that the Jamaican workers were shiftless, meaning lazy or lack of ambition. First of all, you can't call any Jamaican lazy unless he has 5 jobs or less. Okay. Jamaicans have been known to work circles around its American counterparts, regardless of who the caller was. But the idea of black people being lazy, Jamaicans being lazy, started back in times of slavery. And you have to understand that trope, the lazy black worker, started there. Black people weren't lazy. They worked in the fields. But it says they were always ready for a song, a bit of play or a holiday. Black people worked with song to ease the burden of the heat of the sun and the hard labor. And understand too that sometimes songs created a code for black people to allow them to know when to pick up the pace of the work when the white masters were coming. And so we needed to see, you have to understand that song played a very important part. And for them to have one of the holiday, yes, this is how arduous the work was. Okay. So we can go back to the screen again. I'm sorry.
We just have to share your screen again, Rory. Go ahead.
Okay, let me see. Where are we?
You just want to click that green button, Rory.
Okay, and now I'm not seeing my.
Oh, he's got to exit. Just close the full screen.
Close your full screen, and then
presentation.
Your present. Yeah, make sure your presentation's open.
Okay.
And then go ahead and press that green button, and you should be able to reshare it again.
Okay. Here we go. Oh, okay. Are we back? Everyone
We're
sees?
back.
The Five of Hearts. Right, I'll let this one play without exposition. Here we go. The Spanish and Italian workers whose superiority over the Negro laborers of the Isthmus has been demonstrated. And when you look at the magnitude of this architectural feat, this engineering feat, and all the labor that took place, and the men who died, to know that the contributions that Black people have made, and for them to be depicted in those terms, it becomes disturbing. Well, let's lighten it up a little bit, and we'll go to juice. This is what excited me. The Green River whiskey. I believe yesterday, I think this card was covered just to a degree, the Green River whiskey, but this one was 1935. I'm going through this kind of quickly because I know that I think Pip, she's in Germany, and I think it's like 3 o'clock in the morning there. But this particular card, here's the back of it, depicted a Black man with a horse. Now, as far as my knowledge, as far as I can tell, this is the first time that a Black man was featured on the back of a standard playing card. Okay, let's take a look here. But 1935 was the first time the Green River Whiskey Company had their card. Oops, I'm sorry. 1905. And then another one was reissued in 1911, and it came in 4 different colors. The Whiskey Without a Headache was the slogan for them. It was aged for 16 years for all of you whiskey connoisseurs there, for medicinal uses, bottled under the government. In fact, it was almost like a sponsor for the military, and it was sold by licensed druggists. If all of you need a druggist, the Green River whiskey was served for that. And here was the Joker. I'm sorry, let me go back. The Joker from 1905 and 1911. It did not have the Black man. It wasn't until the 1935 edition that the Black man was featured on the front, but on the back, here it was. And there's a difference between the one that was issued in 1935 and the one that was issued in, before. And it was based upon this particular painting. The Green River Whiskey, the Whiskey Without a Headache, was before 1933. And if you see the it says the Whiskey Without Regrets is after. Of course, most of you are familiar with the Prohibition. Well, the Truth in Advertising laws said that you couldn't use whiskey without a headache after Prohibition came into effect. Well, the Whiskey Without Regrets to me is just as indefensible, but it gives you a timeline as to when these decks were made as well. The illustration that the Green River Whiskey was on paintings, and it's sold by the hundreds. You can still find some of these paintings on signs and regular boards today. But the hunter-gatherer in me, like many of you, compelled me to find out, well, who was this man on the trademark? Who was this man that was portrayed on here? So here is the story behind the image.
Here's the alleged story behind the inspiration of the painting used for the Green River Whiskey design. As the story goes, and it's listed on their website, that a happy tavern owner told John McCulloch about a huge storm in the arrival of a shipment of spirits from one of their distilleries, just in time for the 4th of July celebration. One day after a loud thunderstorm, a large crowd gathered outside of the tavern looking at a rainbow. The man with a big smile on his face made his way through town to deliver the Green River whiskey. Someone commented on his ear-to-ear smile, and they continued, and I quote, "As soon as the spirits came from John McCullough into town, the rain stopped and a rainbow came out." The black man leading the horse replied, quote, "It's not so bad getting caught out in a rainstorm with jugs of Green River whiskeys, especially if you're not in a hurry." Well, the crowd spontaneously burst into applause, and this celebratory atmosphere continued. The Green River whiskey. This particular painting was copyrighted in 1899 and owned by W.J. McCullough. He's the one who started the Green River whiskey. He actually bought it in Owensboro, Kentucky. And so I was trying to find out who it was, but 1899, Owensboro, Kentucky, my tracks went cold and I pretty much gave up on it indefinitely. But several months later, in an unrelated search, I was looking for another person and found this postcard. And this was very interesting because I said, after a while, this guy kind of reminds me of the Green River whiskey man. And it was on a postcard for $24 at an auction. But I thought, well, I didn't want to take a chance on that because there's a lot of black men with horses back in that time. So I looked at the bottom of the postcard, and lo and behold, it says copyright 1899 and published by Naffel Brothers. But it says Knoxville, Tennessee, which was like 300 miles away from Owensboro, Kentucky. I said, well, I need to find out who the Naffel brothers were. And some people may recognize this particular painting. Naffel was a big artist slash photographer, more photographer slash artist, who created some stunning work. But also in the late 1800s, he devoted himself to creating some pictures that mock Black life. Here's one about a wedding. It says, "Honey, do you love your man?" And this one, maybe some people may have seen this postcard. I have the postcard as well, called A Skins Game. And it was produced a few years before in 1897. If you look closely, there's the guy to the right. He has some cards in his pocket. He's passing an ace with his feet. The other black man has some cards in his pocket. And to them, the old man is unaware of their activities. But this particular photograph had a follow-up photograph, and it was called where the old man is taking a straight razor. He's bringing that into the game. And so we don't know what the outcome of that is, but the Naffel brothers made this picture, and they put it into what they call the Blackville Gallery. But here's what I ended up finding out just recently. This photograph, this is the actual photograph that was used for the design of the Green River Whiskey logo, trademark. I found this, if you look closely, there's a jug on the horse's side with no writing. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I looked closer at the bottom of this postcard to see that it was copyrighted 1899. McCreary and Branson, Knoxville, Tennessee. Wait a minute, that brought me back to thinking, didn't I see that on, yes, it was on the postcard. But McCreary and Branson were artists and photographers. In fact, they were the rivals of the Naffel brothers, okay? And here is one of Branson's artwork.
fantastic, beautiful oil painting. But he, just like the Naffel brothers, engaged in some very insidious work if you were black, because he came up with this. This is kind of hard to talk about because he created and copyrighted in 1897 as well. This photograph called Alligator Bait. The story is that tells, some of it's been substantiated, that black children were used as alligator bait in Florida and in Louisiana and some other parts of Mississippi. And so the term alligator bait became this sort of euphemism. Later on, the idea was kind of cleaned up by saying that the black children were just playing in the shallow end of the pool while the expert white marksmen would be in the underbrush waiting for the crocodiles to appear. And they would take out the alligators with a single shot. And they would pay the parents, the mothers of these children, maybe 25 cents or $2 to allow them to do that. Other tales were harsher, and some of the babies were skinned alive and placed into water. But McCreary and Branson had a reputation of creating money from the pains and fears of black people. Check this out. This is a few years later, in 1900, the Journal and Tribune in Knoxville, Tennessee, says the alligator bait. The picture entitled Alligator Bait by McCreary and Branson has reached a sale of $11,000 and is still selling well, where? All over the country and abroad. The pictures are reproductions of a photograph, a row of nude Negro children in many striking attitudes. It was taken several years ago. It has, of course, been a source of great profit. So these are the artists behind some of the images that we see today. This particular photograph, McCreary and Branson sold this to the Green River Whiskey Company for $5,000, which was virtually unheard of in that time. It says something about the Green River Whiskey Company and also the Branson. So I don't know whether the story preceded the picture or the picture preceded the story, one of those, which came first, chicken or the egg. That's hard to determine. But I saw this face and I said, wait a minute, this face looks similar. And so I had to look. I looked again. When I saw that this was 1899, Knoxville, Tennessee, and the other one, Branson, 1899, I had to look further, and I compared the two faces. And if you look, the man's hair, he has hat hair. You can tell that he wears a hat. The facial structure, the missing teeth in the front. This had to be the guy. And it wasn't until I found this newspaper article that confirmed my search. And as many of you know who do research, your search can take you down some serious rabbit holes. But I wanted to find out who made this picture. And so here's my answer. The model is still living. USG Clemens of Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where I live in Ohio, designer of the well-known Green River Whiskey sign, while in the city yesterday, stated that the horse and Negro from which the pictures were both were made are both still living in Tennessee. So
That's totally him. That's totally the guy.
that is totally the guy. I was convinced. It says, this postcard then, it says, us full and no more. Let me know that this was unusual for a black person to have a photograph on a postcard that featured them. The name is Henry. Mr. Froman is a little man. Lena, and the horse name was Charlie. This was maybe this was a gift to them. He probably didn't realize how many years later that his photograph would be discovered, because it's not associated with the Green River whiskey right here. And I believe the Naffel brothers couldn't outbid the Branson for this particular photograph. But what struck me even more in this photograph was a picture of the lady. Her name is Lena. Only 35 years removed from slavery. Lena, like many Black women, were defeminized publicly by white men. However, they were often secretly pursued as sex objects. They were also viewed as mere breeders and property. I saw the pain in her eyes, and it just struck a chord with me because of this was the model. This is what people saw, and which brings me to my next piece. Let me try to hurry up here. This is how Black women were depicted on certain playing cards. Let me go back one more. And as you see, they were the mammy figures who put them in the most unattractive light. And of course, they would be desexualized. When you look at the white women who were depicted on playing cards from some of the earliest times and even today, you don't see them depicted in this type of way unless it's caricature. But we didn't see any other images of Black women until later on. And moving a little bit further in history, you have Black women in the Art Deco era and then also in the 50s. But it wasn't until now that you got a chance to see Black women in any type of glamorous depiction on playing cards. Ebony magazine, the magazine that broke ground by being Black oriented, tried to depict Black people and showing them in other dignified manner. The magazine covered entertainments, politics, sports, you name it. And these two women were depicted on these particular playing cards made by Brown and Bigelow. Now, the person who sold this to me, they gave a date of 1957 as the publishing or manufacturing date. And I needed to know, well, who was this lady and when did this cover appear? I discovered that it says Governor William goes to Africa. And so I located the actual magazine, and you can see it here. It's a quite a big, it's over 17 inches height, which gave me a clue. It was created in June of 1961. So the card date that she gave of 1957 couldn't be, because the cover itself didn't exist until June of 1961. And here it is side by side by the card. And of course you see everything else is the same pretty much without the date. The lady, let me go back real quick, was Ann Porter. She was a high-powered model for Ebony magazine. She appeared in some ads, but more notably, she was part of Ebony Fashion Fair. Now, imagine, not your regular fashion show, Ebony Fashion Fair. They put modeling on a whole different level. the runways was different. The music, the swag of black culture attracted people from Italy, France, and other places to be a part of their fashion fair, which had like a 50-city tour, and it lasted for several years and launched some other products. Well, she was on Ebony Magazine and also Jet Magazine, which was part of the Johnson publishing empire. And Jet Magazine was a actually smaller in size as well, magazine. But she made the cover on both. But the 1957, well, where did that come from? It was probably because of this particular card. And it featured a lady named Harlene Harris, who became a supermodel in black circles, one of the first early ones. In 1954, as a high schooler, 16 or 17 years old, she made the cover of Jet Magazine and decided at that point that she wanted to make modeling and music part of her career. You see her in Hue Magazine in 1957, 56. All of these magazines I own as well. And I said, well, 1957, well, was this particular picture of her in 1957? Well, I did some research and I looked at the feature story on the bottom. It says, Girl Behind the Voice. She was a telephone operator, a long distance telephone operator. And they did a backstory before she launched her modeling career. Well, Ebony Magazine did not use her in the red swimsuit on any of their covers. And in fact, when they launched this in 1957, she wore the blue suit. And that's perhaps why they believe that it was 1957. Well, that couldn't have been the case as well. Because the other story says America's 100 Richest Negroes. That title didn't exist until May of 1962. So that lets me know that perhaps Harlene Harris's picture was not from 1957 because she was used in the 1964 pinup. It was the first time that Black women were in a pinup magazine featuring them. And she made the January spot. Well, she was a supermodel. She married superstar singer Jackie Wilson, Mr. Excitement. And some of you are old enough to remember who he was. My mother loved and adored him. But before she married Mr. Excitement, he had dated Ron Isley, Sammy Davis Jr., and Sam Cooke even, before they settled down. Well, here's a picture of her in 2018, a year before she passed, at the age of 81. That was a year before her husband, Jackie Wilson, received his Hollywood star. But later on, more Black women were incorporated, and so in more glamorous pictures, and some of them from a more cultural standpoint as well. I want to end my talk with this. Thank you.
Rory Rennick, ladies and gentlemen. throw those ones in the chat room. My God, that was incredible. That was one of the comments was, we just got 5 years worth of membership out of this talk. Absolutely.
Well,
Virtual standing ovation, sir.
Can I do this? Everyone who joined your new memberships today, I will send them a copy, not a copy, a deck of the Black Panther deck. How's that?
Wow. That's incredibly gracious of you. Thank you. How do they get a hold of you to do this?
They can go to PayPal, Rory Rennick at hotmail.com, with friends and family, and leave their address, a mailing address in the memo section, and I'll send what I'll gladly send. And then put 52 plus jokers, 52 plus joker, as well as their address in the memo section of the PayPal portion.
Okay, and this is just for people who joined the club today, just to come see your lecture. This is a nice way of thanking them.
Thank you so much.
Incredibly generous of you, Rory. Do you have time for a few questions, sir?
Yes, if you do.
Oh, you know we do. You know we do. So everyone, if you've got questions, start putting them in the chat. There we go. People are asking, can they buy a deck from you? Is that possible?
It depends how many people joined.
I'll tell you what, Rory, really quickly, just put your email in the chat for us, the email that you just said. Just go ahead and type that in so that everyone can see it. And yeah, you said that you've got limited stock, so it's a first come, first serve, right?
Yeah, and I was selling for 15.
Okay. So if they join today, you probably have to send a screenshot of your membership for today. That's your proof. And everyone else, $15. The deck is yours. Rory, man, this was awesome. You know what I find the most fascinating is, like you said, it's very difficult to talk religion, politics, and certainly race, but it's taken playing cards for us to have this discussion, right? Playing cards are the bridge for us to be able to have this very critical, very topical piece of discussion. And so it's an honor, and B, it's mind blowing, because this is something that we talk about we've been talking about playing cards for 2 days, and this subject hasn't come up, but now it has, and like I say, it's that bridge. So thank you for helping us to cross this bridge and to have this kind of conversation, because like I said before, we've never done that. We've never had this opportunity.
I appreciate it for having me. For the first black newspaper in America in 1829 had in part of this story, it said, "For too long have others spoken for us." And sometimes it's hard for people who want to be allies to a movement, to a moment. And I'll tell you this real quickly and share this with everyone. My stepfather, he was a veteran in the Korean War, not the one that's coming, back in the 50s, and he stood proudly for this country. He stood, for all those ideas, but he couldn't sit down with his white friend.
I have Rory Rennick at Hotmail.
He had to be quiet. When his train was going through the South as a soldier, his leader told him, probably had to keep your shades down. This is not that long ago. Things have changed and are changing, but we're not out of the woods yet. And it's like there's a worldwide awakening. Don't worry about it being hijacked by some political movement. If it's in your heart to do right to people, let that be your calling card.
Absolutely. I'm going to get personal for a moment. When you contacted me, it had to have been last year. It was last year, before COVID, before any of this. And we had some very frank, candid conversations about this. And like I say, we've never had this kind of opportunity to have this kind of discussion. And yeah, sure, you walk around the dealer's room at the convention and you might see a watermelon joker. You might see certain images, and for the most part, if that's not what you collect, you kind of you ignore it. You kind of look the other way. And I think a lot of that probably had to do with the fact that we had no vocabulary to discuss it. We didn't know what do we say? How do we act around it? It's very much like seeing a swastika. If there's any Jewish people in the chat room, right? We see swastikas or the original shape that was before a swastika, the reverse image. I believe that's of an Indian descent. It offers this feeling. And again, without any words, it's just kind of bottles up and we don't know how to express it. And man, after tonight, now you've given us vocabulary. You've given us the verbiage to be able to have this conversation. And that's so important. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you. This is more questions. Are any questions coming through?
Well, yeah, while we're waiting for the questions, this is what I was going to get at, is during our frank conversations, you said you'd write some articles, and you delivered 2 articles for Card Culture that were monumental. And the first one, you helped us get our feet wet. But the second one, it was the deep end, man. It was the real deep end. And in there, what really fascinated me was your trajectory of where you started, what you wanted to do originally with these cards, and where you've ended up. So can you just share some of that trajectory with us?
Right, and people have to realize, and I'm not just blowing smoke up your tail because you're here. Lee is a great leader, because when I had these concerns, when I started collecting playing cards and started seeing these vintage cards that depicted Black people in in not so flattering ways, it's disturbing as a collector, because these are people of my ancestry being depicted on playing cards. And I said, who do I approach? But then I had to be frank, Lee. I kind of watched you operate for a few months to see if I could approach you. And I saw that you were open-minded, that you were progressive in terms of doing things, thinking outside the box, bringing in the manufacturers, the artists, all these components. And when Carter Moon Day did their thing, and I saw how you handled it, I said, this is the man I can talk to. And so we had that frank discussion. In fact, I was the one I said, well, maybe if I write the article, you found out that I was writing a book about a Black magician, and you offered me, the opportunity to write an article about it. And I said, well, maybe we'll just maybe put it for February, Black History Month. And you said, no, we're not going to paint it like that. We're not going that route. And I was so appreciative of that. And so we did it in January. And this was before that, and the March issue happened before the George Floyd incident happened. And so I knew that your intentions were pure, and you really gave audience to a perspective that perhaps some of your club members probably never heard before either.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you again. You've educated us tonight, Rory. Like Kevin Raylick said in the chat, we just got 5 years worth of membership out of this one talk. Forget all the other stuff that's been going on these last few days. So in your second article, and then we're going to get to some questions in the chat. Your second article, you discuss when you first bought these cards, you wanted to buy them to destroy them. You wanted to just get rid of them. It bothered you in such a it was painful, and after a while, you had a change of heart. So can you just touch on that a little bit for us?
Right. When you see the images and you realize that the power of the press in advertising, and the card manufacturers, they were part of the press too. They were delivering a message, unbeknownst to them, to a particular degree, but they fell victim to the societal norms at that time. So, but I didn't want to get them off the hook. But I don't believe in cancel culture per se. But just like with the statues around the United States, now I think they address some of that in Canada as well. Like I said, I don't believe in cancel culture per se, but just like the statues, there were certain statues that needed to go, period, point blank. Okay, no discussion. If you were a treasonous traitor to the United States, and you were a general in that army, I'm sorry, you got to go. Now, there were other statues of certain people who've done some bad things, but did they redeem themselves? Did they do anything after that mindset? And so each of them have to be weighed on their own merits. So I don't think it should just take a broad brush and take away everything. Some things need to be contextualized. And then some of them need to be put away in a museum for others to see and maybe not be paid with taxpayers' dollars. So when I saw these cards, yeah, I wanted to take them, but of course that was incredibly naive. I didn't have enough money to buy up all the racist cards that exist. so that was out the, though I tried a lot. Yeah, I spent a lot of money.
So what was the turning point? What made you decide that, no, you don't want to destroy these. You want to use these for a higher purpose. What was the turning point for you?
Realizing that everyone didn't share the racist views that collected them. Just because you owned a racist card doesn't make you a racist. And I understand there's a market for Black memorabilia. I understand, there's that going on. But I figured, well, it could be a teaching tool. People can understand, okay, I have this card. Now I have some history I can give behind it and why this card was so significant, and why it was impactful to certain people of color and people who just carried them out. And some people, they collect Black jokers just for the monetary. I understand as an investment, but I think it goes a long way to show your appreciation for the history behind it as well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's get into the chat room. Let's get some questions from the chat here. Let's see here. By the way, there's your email address. Rory, you said your PayPal email address very quickly. So we have your Hotmail address up, but do you want to tell your PayPal address one quickly again?
Oh, I used my Rory Rennick Hotmail.
Oh, okay. So this is the right address, yes?
Right. PayPal, Rory Rennick at hotmail.com.
Perfect.
New members, just put your name and, like you said, a screenshot if you want to, and it'll be free. Everybody else, 15, and file supplies.
Very generous.
I collected a lot of them because they were rare. I have probably now the world's largest collection of African diaspora / Black image playing cards. That's my particular niche. I said, because there's so few, I wanted to get as many as I could to see, well, what's the progression? And I think next year, kind of letting the cat out of the bag, I too, just like Jason, wanted to introduce these cards on a YouTube channel and make it entertaining as well as educational.
That would be wonderful. Can people sign up to your YouTube right now? Can we subscribe right now?
No, not yet. But when I do, I'm gonna come to you first.
Okay. All right. Well, then I will help you tell the world, my friend.
Thank you so much.
So Paul Levine has a question in the chat. He asks, is it common to collect cards in the African American community?
Actually, no. Some don't even know that there are African and Black images on certain playing cards. And when I tell them that not only are there some in the past, there's some in the present, and they get excited about it, and I kind of turn them on to it. But there's not very many collectors. I don't know if there's any African American people in this convention. Put a 3 in the in the chat box.
Throw some threes. Throw some threes. There we go. Yes. Yes, we do.
Now, I'd say that everyone could be black for just a moment, but I've taken away your blackness now. Okay, but now we got a few. Okay. All right. Well, that's cool. Pimp chick, she's black now in Germany. That's cool.
So wait, there's something. There was a comment that flew by very quickly. I don't know if everyone caught it, but Jackson Robinson just said that he would like to design a deck with you.
Oh, I would be honored beyond measure. He is black, you know that, right?
I don't know if he was in the room for that, but I don't know if Jackson, did you hear that in the beginning? I don't know if you got to hear it, but yeah, there we go. He doesn't. I don't think he heard it the first time. You want to say it again?
He just know I am black.
So guys, do you have any questions for Rory? Let's get some questions in the chat. So Kristen Patterson asks, do you also collect decks that commemorate Black people?
Yes, I do. As all collectors, we have a heck of a time categorizing our cards. I want to have one that's Black history, and then some that are Black pride. Black pride would be different than Black history. Some that commemorate the history of Black people with individual historical figures of African American and African diaspora people, and some of them commemorate Black culture, which they're not so much teaching a lesson, but you might see an African tribe or one like a pharaonic deck talking about the culture of Egypt. You do know that Egypt is in Africa, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What's your favorite deck? They're asking you what's your favorite deck.
Oh man, Lee, that's not fair. I got 3 children.
I know it's too broad of a question.
But one of them is my favorite, but they won't know which one it is.
That's right.
I'm still. Each time I get some new information about a particular deck of cards, you know, my interest, and I start to like them for different reasons. Like I said, the Cotton Belt route has this racist depiction of a little Black girl with the watermelon and a cotton wreath. But from a historical standpoint, and the information surrounding it has made it near and dear to my heart for that reason.
Okay. So Paige had a question about what got you started collecting playing cards.
Yeah, and I talk about that in the January issue of Card Culture. I too perform as a magician, and that puts you in contact with a lot of different playing cards. And I wanted different decks, for different presentational styles. And I started collecting odd little decks. And then I started seeing some vintage cards, and it's like, wow, the design, the craftsmanship made me think, wow. And I've always loved history, as you could probably tell. That drew me to start collecting them more.
So Randy Shine, your friend and mine, he asks, how many Black decks of cards do you have?
I probably have over 110 different types of. I found if I could find a Black person in the corner of a picture, I counted that as part of my part of my collection. There's some advertising cards like maybe cool cigarettes, and there's one that has a Black model on the front of it. It was made probably in the 70s or 70s or 80s. but then the other one had some black people real small on a mountaintop, you know, with some other people. So I collected them as well. So wherever I could find black people on them. So the last count was like 110. So I'm sure I'm probably closer to, I don't want to say, my wife is here. Probably close to 200. I'm close to 200.
I'm watching.
Maybe like about 200.
I'm very proud of him. He's been thinking about this for some time, put a lot of energy, a lot.
Oh yeah, it shows. It shows. And thank you for allowing him to put that time in.
You're welcome. But I'm happy he's able to find a group of people who are interested what he's interested in. When he first started doing it, I'm thinking, oh, but then there's a group of people who are interested. And
around the world.
And I was watching the convention and see the making of the cards. Very, very interesting. So I'm having a good time with the convention too. And
we don't play around here. We don't play around here. This is legit.
No decking around. Oh no, we do deck around. Those
That's
guys
right. That's right. Thank you. So okay, we have another. This is a great question. Do you know how many famous black playing card designers are there?
I only know one, and he does more cardistry. Omar Renfro
From Los Angeles.
Right. As far as I know, that was it. That are alive. Let me put it that way. Oh, there's one, and it's kind of controversial. There is a deck he had sent me information about it, and he told me, in fact, he sold me a deck. It was a historical card that had, I don't want to dig it out, Coca-Cola and McDonald's did a Black History card. Published by the United States Playing Card Company, but it was by an artist who hailed from Ohio in 1972 or so. But here's the thing, it looks like they used her image without her permission beyond the scope of time. But yeah, she's still alive. She's about 70. In fact, I want to have her interview her in the future. He lives in the Carolinas.
Also the Kokondo deck, right? I sent you that link of he's a playing card designer from Africa.
So I just been too busy to design one. I have a graphic artist that I like, but she's been having some health issues. But if Jackson is willing to sit down with me at some point in time out of his busy schedule, we can see what we can do to make something happen.
He's screaming in capital letters, I'm in. I might have missed my one I'm in, but he's in. Let's get some ones in the chat room, ladies and gentlemen. Rory Rennick. How great was this talk, man? Thank you so much. Really, we're blessed.
Thank you.
All right, Rory, I'm going to give you 60 seconds. There's one thing you want to leave us with, please.
If you're collecting cards, don't be afraid or ashamed of the blackface cards. They can add some variety to your collection. Give as much historical context as you can, and just be kind to one another. We can make a big difference. We like Lee said, we can bridge some conversations just through our playing cards. I believe in the 4 Bs: building bridges and breaking barriers. Thank you.